Hello, welcome back. Today I'm at Mare Island in Vallejo, and we're going to tour a ship here. We participated in some campaigns during World War II. Okinawa is one of them. It's the USS LCS 102. So let's go check it out and see what we can discover. All right. Were you on the USS Hornet?
No.
Oh, no, never?
I visited it.
Okay.
I wasn't stationed.
Okay, because I was there a few months ago and there was someone just looked just like you.
Another good-looking guy?
Yeah, exactly.
They're only media in California.
This is my dad, Woody. I'm
How
Paul.
you doing? How are you? I'm Tony.
Nice to meet you, Tony.
And I'll show you around.
Awesome.
You haven't been aboard before?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Neither one of us have.
Let's go forward if you sign in, please, first.
Sure.
This is an LCS, which stands for Landing Craft Support.
Landing craft.
At the end of World War II, they were taking the islands back from the Japanese, and most of the islands have reefs around them, so the larger ships couldn't get close into shore.
Okay.
So they needed something that was shallow drafted, that could get close into shore and provide close-in firing support for the landing craft. So they developed these. The hulls are actually from an LCI, excuse me, Landing Craft Infantry, and it was a little troop ship.
Is it a flat hole underneath?
It had kind of a weird configuration. It's the exact same size as this.
Yeah.
But the deck and everything were configured differently. So it had like this would be all enclosed, and then it had a top deck, and there were two ramps that went down, and the guys would run down the ramps.
Got it.
And then they had.
I think I've seen those in movies.
Yeah, not the way to hit the beach,
no.
as far as I'm concerned. I guess it's better than the Higgins boats. So anyway, so they had the hulls prefab, so they took the hulls and they reconfigured the deck into a gunboat. It's the most densely armed ship the Navy ever built per ton. There's more firepower per ton than a battleship.
I was going to say there's a lot of big guns on here, and this isn't a big boat.
Right, we don't even have them all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So was
it a forward gun? It's a 3-inch 50 multi-purpose surface-to-surface and anti-aircraft. So you wouldn't get a direct hit with a gun like this. You would get. They fired a special shell.
Why wouldn't you get a direct hit?
Well, it'd be really. I mean, you'd be
hard.
Lucky, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they did was they had shells that had an explosive or had a timer in the nose.
Okay.
And those would go off, and the shrapnel hopefully would hit the plane.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So that would be an anti-aircraft shell, and then it fired an impact shell for surface-to-surface. So the shell would go off when it hit something. So if they're shooting at a beach or another boat or barge or whatever.
Were submarines a threat also?
These didn't really go after the submarines.
Okay.
They weren't really concerned with submarines because they're so shallow drafted the torpedoes went underneath them.
I see.
So a good gun crew fire 18-20 rounds a minute. One side controls the elevation, the other side controls the tracking.
Wow. Oh, it moves pretty fast, actually.
Yeah. Made by Ford.
Made by Ford.
Yep. In Detroit, I believe. It says it on the side.
And what caliber did you say?
It's a 3-inch 50 caliber. So 3-inch 50 diameter of the shell.
And 3 inches
50,
long.
3 times 50 is 150, and that's the length of the barrel.
Oh.
So Navy caliber is different than, a regular, like a 38 or a 22 caliber.
So this was considered like a front line ship almost. It went ahead of the fleet?
For the landings. It helped mostly with the landings. And then after the landings, these would be set out as picket duty, 10, 15, 20, 30 miles off the island, and they would intercept the Kamikaze that were coming over to crash into our ships. So they would set these out like usually 3 or 4 with a destroyer. And they've had some interesting stories from incidents that happened from that, getting hit by Kamikaze.
I bet.
6 of these were lost during World War II, 1 in operations, 2 Kamikaze, and 3 by suicide boat. In the Philippines, the Japanese had these specially designed suicide boats that speedboat basically, and had a compartment in the front that held 250 pounds of explosives.
Oh my God!
And they would take those and ram them into the side of whatever ship they could get to. They did mostly in the Philippines. They did that. A lot of hiding places, all the islands and everything.
Yeah, how are you going to stop? How are you going to stop that thing coming towards you?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
So this is our forward armaments, 3-inch 50. Sometimes they had a 40mm cannon here instead of this.
Wow.
Where these round weld marks are on the deck,
yeah,
they had rocket launchers, fired 120 rockets at a time. Each rocket is equal to a 20-pound bomb, and they were fixed on a 45-degree angle pointed forward. So you had to aim the bow of the boat at the beachhead to fire the rockets at. And those rockets would hit the beach, and that would hopefully get any landmines or gun emplacements that the Japanese had on the beach.
Crazy. Yeah, this must have been an intense. There's nowhere to really hide from the enemy.
No, and there's no armor on this thing.
Yeah.
They're built to be shallow drafted, so they're light. The hull is only 3/4 inch. Or not even 3/4, it's 3/8 inch steel.
Out of the 6 you said were lost, did they lose a lot of the crew?
6 were lost, 28 were damaged severely.
How about the crew? Did any of them survive the losses?
Yeah, I mean, there were losses.
Yeah.
It was, you know, that's war.
Right. Wow.
Had a crew of 71, 65 enlisted, and 6 officers.
On this little boat?
Yeah. Everybody had their own bunk.
You better get along with your people.
Well, you always do in the Navy anyway.
Yeah.
It's,
this is a tiny boat for 71 people, to be honest.
It's only 158 foot long.
Yeah.
So you figure that's a little bit more than 2 feet per person.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Cool. Well, what was the range of this?
We could lob shells up in Napa from here.
Wow.
In Benicia.
So that's
But generally,
from
these are used for sight targets.
Wow.
You didn't use these actually for like shore bombardments.
But aerial attack, how high would it go?
I'm not sure.
15,000 maybe?
Probably 20.
20,000?
Yeah, I wasn't a gunner's mate
Right.
when I was in.
I'm impressed.
I'm sure that information's available.
Of course. Cool.
One of these days I'll look it up. Add it to my repertoire of stuff. Let's see, let's go aft.
Now these are typical anti-aircraft.
Anti-aircraft, surface to surface. The problem with shooting at the Kamikazes, what they found was you had to blow up the plane.
Okay.
So if a plane was coming at you, the momentum of the plane, I mean, you might shoot the pilot or shoot the engine, make the engine stop, but the momentum of the plane is going to keep on going.
Because it's still aiming at you. Yeah.
So if you were lucky enough to hit the plane in the right spot, it would explode, and that would take care of it.
Right.
But a lot of times they were shooting, the plane would just be, they could shoot the wings off, and the plane would just be hurtling at them anyway.
Wow.
So they would still get hit. So the trick was to blow them up, which was really difficult.
I was just going to say that can't be easy.
Well, they didn't have a lot of gas on the planes because they only gave them enough gas to get out to wherever they were going.
They wanted to make sure they didn't chicken out, right?
Yeah, they weren't supposed to come back.
Yeah. No chickening out on that mission.
No. So these are 20mm. Originally in World War II, these were singles. They weren't doubles. After World War II, this ship was mothballed in Astoria, Oregon, along with a bunch of other ones. Sometime in the 1950s, ironically, we gave 53 of these to the Japanese.
Wow.
Literally every ship the Japanese had in World War II was sunk. So the Cold War was going on, Korea. They needed a Coast Guard.
Wow.
A lot of smuggling going on between China and Japan.
Okay.
Korea and Japan. South Korea and Japan are only like 80 miles apart. So they needed a Coast Guard. We gave them 54 of these. They were our allies, during the Cold War.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of changes to it, and they had it for about 6-8 years, and then it was transferred to the Thai Navy, and they had it up until about 18 years ago.
Wow.
And they made a bunch of changes to it.
So, now you're saying this particular one might be the last one?
As far as we know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the other was a mothballed?
Mothballed. Some of them were sold off for scrap.
Right.
I think a few of them ended up as fishing boats up in Alaska. They did whatever, because they only needed them for towards the end of World War II. They weren't designed to last 70, 80 years.
Right.
They had a specific reason they were designed for, and that's what they were used for.
Of course. So when you say these were singles,
these were singles.
Did these fire like bop, 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 like that?
These fired 450 rounds a minute as a single.
As a single,
yeah.
Wow.
So that magazine holds 60 rounds. That would be empty in like 3 seconds if you fired it continuous. Usually they fired first.
So was there a guy standing by to hand you another magazine?
You'd have a gunner. He'd be strapped in. There was like
and
a harness
magazine
that he
guy
sat in, and his feet would be in front of him. That was how he propelled himself around. And then you'd have probably 4 guys on this gun. You'd have loaders that would. All these boxes have
so
ammo magazines.
These were the magazine storage areas?
Right.
Okay.
And so he'd be switching out the magazine. Sometimes if the barrel got too hot, they'd have to switch out the barrel.
I was going to say those things must have got so hot. Wow.
And they had extra barrels in those boxes in the front there.
So the barrels, how would they switch the barrels off when they're red hot? They must have
They had a guy with gloves.
Special gloves, right?
And I'm not quite sure how he did it, but somehow these just like twist off.
There's some pins here. Maybe they pulled it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it's done.
In that, a hot barrel what would the bullets or whatever might get stuck in it, or?
Yeah, once because the heat expands.
Right.
So they have these. This would be full of water, and they can put the barrel in there to cool it off, and get ready for the next time they have to switch out.
Wow. This would be probably the scariest position to be in.
Yeah.
Standing here looking at a kamikaze heading your way.
Trying to hope you hit it enough to where.
In the elevation, I guess.
Yeah, it's locked right. There's big springs in there, and the springs are broken.
Got it.
It's hard to get parts for this stuff anymore.
Yeah, very cool.
Go half.
Here's your rescue dinghy.
Yeah, they all had one. They weren't fiberglass back then.
No.
That one's wood, but somebody fiberglassed it.
Oh, I
back
see.
In the day. Okay, this is our aft 40mm Bofors.
Wow, this is a big one.
Fires a 20mm shell, 350 rounds a minute. There's 2 barrels. Probably had 10 guys on this gun. So if you look inside here, it's filled with clips of 4 shells. So you'd have this cover comes off. You'd have a guy standing on each side, and it'd fire as fast as you could drop the clips in.
Wow.
And he would be firing from a guy up there by remote control. And up in that bucket is like motorcycle handlebars, and the gun is slave to those.
Huh. Really?
Yeah.
So he had better vision.
He got better vision. He also had a sighting device. When they're shooting at planes, it compensated for the lead that you have to account for when you're shooting at aircraft.
Okay.
And they had a sighting device, Mark something, 53 or something like that. Sighting device, and that automatically compensated.
Would they be able to tell the plane's speed and trajectory?
Yeah, it compensated for all that.
Okay. Wow. I've never heard of that, remote control, though.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not like, it's wired remote control.
But still. And then these guys, the gun moved itself, so they just kept it going, right?
Right. And then if he got knocked out, they could fire it manually like the Ford gun. There's 2 hand cranks.
Yeah. And the primitive look through the eyesight.
Constantly.
40mm, huh? Those are some big rounds.
I will show you the ammo.
Oh, okay.
The ammo.
And I imagine standing where we are right now when it was running would be very sketchy.
Well, they didn't have the armor on these guns either. These were, the Thais put the armor on. These were open guns.
The armor around it?
Yeah. Well, this
or
was
this?
Here. This wasn't on it.
Okay.
Or that, or the front piece. They were open guns.
Got it. Well.
The Thais put the armor. I think they used it for river patrol mostly, so they're more susceptible to small arms fire.
I see. And this is ½ inch, a quarter inch, quarter inch.
Yeah.
Thick enough.
Quarter. Might be half.
Yeah, it's amazing how small this is. I can see what you say by most heavily armed.
That's our anchor
per
windlass.
square
The
ton.
in the stern as opposed to the bow.
What do they use the winch for?
If they got themselves caught, they could use it for towing. If they got caught on a sandbar or something, they could drop the anchor and pull themselves off.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's run by a 371 Detroit diesel. They use Detroit diesels for everything. Just depending on how big the what you needed it for, you just added cylinders. So they had 871 Detroits, 671 Detroits, 1271 Detroits.
And cable.
Yeah.
Not rope, cable. Well.
Okay.
You were going to show me around? Did you have one of those? Or?
Yeah, I'll show you that.
Oh, somewhere else. Okay.
We'll get
And you guys are constantly refurbishing this, I see?
It's like the Golden Gate Bridge is.
So work.
Rust is not our friend.
No, and you're on the water. Very cool. All right.
You want to go down to the engine room?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll look at it all.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. This is the main engine room. These are MTUs, Mercedes-Benz.
Really?
Originally, they were 671 Detroit standard. So there were 8 671s, 4 per side in a quad formation. And that's a 671 in there. That's our generator. So there are 8 of those in here.
So when you said this is just one motor, right?
Right. These are, in 1983, the Thais took out their original engines and put these in.
So when you said there were 8, were they like bam, bam,
And
bam?
we're in a quad formation, so this is what it looks like. So there's 4 671 Detroits, and then there's a reduction gear in the center.
Oh, I see.
And that's what.
Kind of like those crazy drag cars you see with 5
they
V8s lined up.
put line. Yeah, they.
Wow. And these are Mercedes, huh?
These are Mercedes. So ironically, the ship was given to the Japanese. They had it for 8 years or so. Then it was given to the Thais, and Thailand was allied with Japan during World War II.
Okay.
And they put German engines in.
But I assume they did that for the reliability of them?
Yeah, I think they had problems because with the quad formation, all the engines have to run so you can run the shaft on 1 engine, 2 engines, 3 engines, or 4 engines.
Oh, okay.
But if you run it on more than one, all the engines have to be the exact same RPM.
Yeah.
And so running 4, it's tricky.
Right?
Generally, they did it by temperature.
Really?
Yeah, that's how they would judge if the engines were running the same. They'd all be the same temperature.
Huh.
That was the easiest way.
Well, what a trip. I never thought about that. I used to have a twin motorcycle, and you had to have the carburetors dialed.
Right.
Otherwise, it was fighting itself.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, that's cool. I bet it was loud in here. With 4 of those things going?
There are 8 of them.
8 of them, that's right.
4
You
per
said,
side.
man. And the maintenance on those had to be a lot.
I know they burn out the clutches a lot. So like they would load any spare space they have with extra
With
clutches because they'd be burning out the clutches.
Yeah, you don't want to get stuck somewhere. Well, and then you said the other one's a generator?
Yeah, these are generators. These are 671 Detroits. There's 2.
Why are they called Detroit? They're just made in Detroit?
Yeah, they're made in Detroit.
Yeah. Detroit Diesel. Is that a brand?
They were made by GM.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you got the giant power switches back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all.
So it's
those
one.
are circuit breakers. I've seen older. So this was built in 1945. I've seen the 44 version, and they're all bus fuses instead of circuit breakers.
I lived in a house like that. You had the screw. Yeah, the screw-in ones.
We put a penny in there.
Yeah. And the tongue and groove was the wires are tongue and fire hazard central. Very cool. So was one a backup? Or do they use them both?
No, they would use them both.
Really? Okay. Wow. And this bell is for something, air raid.
Yeah, alarm.
All right, we're going back up now?
Go back up.
All right, thanks for showing me that.
You guys local or?
Yeah, I live in Nevada. He's visiting from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. Not too local.
Not too local.
Are you going to come up, Dad?
What?
You going to come up here?
Let's see.
Okay. We used to just have vertical ladders. Yeah, we ended up.
Well, this is a normal ladder.
Yeah, a lot of people couldn't get up here, so we kind of kind of fudged on our true
Authenticity.
Yeah, just to make it.
Don't feel pressured if you don't want to come up. I mean,
Yeah.
It's coming up as easy as coming down this arm.
That's what I just said about the engine room. I said, oh, going up is not too bad. Wow, there's a lot more guns up here, too.
Yeah, they had, I think, 5 50 calibers on each side. With those round weld marks down there.
You can hold my hand if you need to.
I got it. So
Yeah.
far.
With those round weld marks, they had 50s down there also.
Man, this thing was loaded with guns, huh? So these are the 50s?
Yeah, those are mocks.
When you say mock, they're just like a dummy?
Yeah, somebody, one of the guys made them
Oh, I see.
for us.
Okay.
We got broken into about 10 years ago,
Really?
and somebody tried to steal one. And they thought they were real,
Oh, my
and
God.
they started taking it apart, and they realized the barrel's made out of PVC.
Solid. Oh, really, bro?
Is this a mock, too, or is this a...
Yeah, that one's mock.
Okay. They look real enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, kind of gives you the idea.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I say, the Times made a lot of changes. They put this armor on the, or it's not armor, but before it was just stanchions and chain.
Oh, okay.
They put the sides on like this. These are 81 millimeter mortars. They're early Vietnam vintage. Ties put these on. They took the, originally up here were 20 millimeters like the ones down there.
Yeah.
And they took these off. These are a Navy mortar, so they're different than the Army mortars that are usually on a tripod.
Okay.
And they have to fire it at an angle. These will actually fire horizontally.
What is a mortar versus a round? What's the difference?
It's fired from the front.
Okay, okay.
It's
Drop it-
loaded from
right.
the front. And they, like I say, these will actually fire horizontally, so it's more of a artillery piece compared to the Army mortars.
Okay. And they're explosive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 81 millimeter shell.
So the diameter of this is a shell?
Yeah, these are demilitarized, so
Right.
welded.
That's a
how
big-
big the shell is.
Yeah.
So you figure they're 4 times bigger, or twice as big as the 40 millimeters. I'll show you the ammo. These are forward 40 millimeter, just like the one in the back, fired from a guy in the bucket up there.
Another bucket.
And again, up there is like motorcycle handlebars, and we're going to slave to those.
Now, what does the Yankee dollar have to do with it?
So these were, in the Navy, a ship has to be 400 ton to have a name, and we're only 290.
I
So
see.
these just have hull numbers. We're 102 out of the 130 they made.
Okay.
So a lot of them had nicknames. So Yankee Dollar is from Andrew Sister's song called Rum and Coke. And so it's nickname. Yeah, that's what this one's nickname was.
Okay. They're the ones that did the Boogie Woogie.
Yeah, Bugle
Yeah,
Boy.
right.
Yeah.
Sisters, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a
I
ton of
remember
songs.
them when I was a boy.
Yeah. I remember they were always on Abbott and Costello movies.
Yeah.
They were in that, and
The
A
tie-
lot of cameos.
yeah.
yeah, they made quite the. They were very popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were around a long time. Okay, let's go up into the bridge.
So this is a 240 millimeters. Another round. It looks like the bird's got the round of that one.
Yeah, we got bird. Yeah, we always have bird issues. One of the guys was feeding them, and I told him, I said, "Quit feeding the damn birds."
Yeah.
He said they're
They're gonna come back.
all over the place.
Oh, this is
That's hard to get off, too.
this is the main.
There's the
main-
bridge.
Wow, this is intense. This is worth coming up for.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. So,
Tight spot.
yeah, you'd only have 2, maybe 3 people in here.
Wow. So this is
Engine telegraph.
this. I learned that on the Red Victory. That this
Yeah, red.
this isn't Red Oak. This isn't this isn't a throttle. It sends the message to the engine room.
To the throttle room.
I always thought it was an actual throttle.
Yeah, you see them in the movies, and they turn it and it rings a bell.
Yeah.
All right, that bell wakes the guy up down there.
Right.
And says, okay, full stop, or whatever the thing says.
There's a bell behind you. Oh.
Magnetic compass, gyro compass, 24-hour clock.
Okay. That's why. Oh, this is in military time.
Yeah, it's military.
You don't see that very often.
No, you don't. I'm surprised it's still here after all these years. The Tyson.
And what was this for, too?
Speaking tubes. So they had an intercom system, sound-powered phone system.
Right.
And then, so there's always redundancy in the Navy.
Okay.
So you always have backup systems. So this is the last backup for communication. This one goes up to the tower, top of the tower, which is just a lookout. This one goes down to navigation and radio, and this one goes to the
all power
quarters.
goes down. You can still talk to someone.
Right.
It's just a tube, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like they have at parks for kids.
Sure.
Watch bell.
Can I ring it?
Yeah, it's loud.
Not too loud.
Yeah.
What is that?
So it's what they call a watch bell. So like they have a mid-watch.
Yeah. So
a mid-watch is from midnight to 4. They're 4-hour watches. So one bell would be 1:30. 2 bells would be 1 o'clock. 3 bells 1:30. 2 bells would be, or 4 bells would be 2 o'clock, and so on until you get to 8 bells. And then 8 bells is when you change the watch.
Is that to acknowledge that you're still alert up here? And
yeah, I think that, and it's kind of a thing from back in the sailing days. A tradition.
So if they didn't hear a bell, they'd probably go, something's going on.
Right.
Right.
Somebody's asleep.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Yeah.
Or worse.
Did.
And this went down to.
That's a trunk that goes down to the main deck again.
Okay.
We'll go down the stairs.
And this actually did turn the rudder, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's 2 cables, and this is connected to the sending unit, and after steering, the hydraulic unit, and you go that way, and one cable tightens, the other cable loosens.
Okay, that makes sense. And how do these weights work on this?
Those are they call them cocks and balls. So that calibrates the magnetic compass.
Through magnetic fields?
Right.
Okay.
With these.
So the closer they get to the magnetic field...
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the science is behind it,
right.
But that's how they calibrate the
magnetic
compass.
This thing is pretty interesting. Wow. A lot of history here.
Okay.
Thank you for showing us that.
Take you inside.
Ah, the mess hall.
Galley.
Galleys.
Mess hall's down there.
Got it.
Or mess deck.
Mess hall's where you eat, galleys where you make the food,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah, galley's the kitchen. So this is the galley. They cook for 71 people in here.
71 people in here.
So the next time your wife complains about the kitchen, tell her it could be a lot worse.
Wow, that's a lot of people. Probably some good meals came out of here too.
Yeah, we got one of the original cookbooks. It's kind of cool.
Really?
Yeah, cooking and baking on board ship.
Wow.
This one's
like recipes.
Yeah. And what they are is everything is
Salmon
for 100 servings. So if you have 50 people, you cut everything in half. If you have 200 people, you just
You
multiply.
don't see that in normal cookbooks, that amount of people. Out of bread foods.
Irish lamb stew.
Were the chefs on board? Were they trained or they learned?
Well, they're what they call commissary men. That's a Navy rate. So that's their specialty.
So they were
cooking.
trained on cooking.
Yes,
Okay.
they go to commissary school, and they learn, on the job.
Okay.
So the Navy has schools. They have A, B, and C schools. So the Navy has rates. So that's like your specialty. So they have like radiomen, signalmen, helmsman, machinist mate, damage control specialist. So they all have an insignia. So if you look on a sailor's uniform, and he has, he'll have the crow on top. Then there'll be a insignia underneath that, and then
Is that their like training?
that's their rate.
Okay.
So that's what your specialty is.
Got it.
So if you were in engineering,
Right.
then you wouldn't be up on the main
Right.
deck chipping paint and stuff.
Were the cooks respected by everybody and treated
Yeah,
well?
you made
or-
friends with the cooks.
Right. I figured that.
If the cooks, if something broke down, when I was in engineering, and I was in A division, which is auxiliary engineering. So
Okay.
our responsibilities, engineering responsibilities included the mess deck and the laundry and
Got it.
And a bunch of different things all over the ship. So if they called and said, this broke, you took care of them first.
When did you serve?
I was in from January 71 to January 75.
Did you go to Vietnam?
Yeah, we did 2 Westpacks.
Wow. What does a Westpac mean?
Western Pacific deployment.
Okay.
So they call it Westpac. So we would operate in what they call Yankee Station, and it's up in the Tonkin Gulf, which is North Vietnam, off the coast of North Vietnam. They had Yankee Station, and it's just a big map coordinate. It's a big rectangle out in the sea. So the task force operate in that rectangle, and they just sail on a figure 8 in that rectangle, and they launch the planes. And so we would be assigned to that task.
Did you see a lot of action during that time?
We did shore bombardments. We did a lot of operations, but like shore bombardments, you can't see what you're shooting at.
Yeah.
You're shooting at stuff 20 miles away.
You weren't on the
No,
army,
like boots in the ground type thing.
You hear the horror stories of Vietnam.
But the isolation is like we had 4 suicide attempts
On the boat?
on my ship. Yeah.
You had a normal sized ship, not one
I
of
was
these.
on an ammo ship out of Port Chicago.
Okay.
In Concord.
But was it for the isolation that they wanted, or they just the war itself? Or?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure each one was individual.
That's why the USS Hornet, they say, is haunted, because so many people took their lives on there and stuff.
Well, a lot of people can't handle isolation. Especially the aircraft carrier. You're out at sea for 2-3 months at a time.
To me, the ultimate would be a submarine. I mean,
well, those guys, submarines are only volunteer, so you can only volunteer to be on a submarine.
Even during wartime?
Even during wartime,
I didn't
it's all
know
voluntary.
Because they knew it was like a pressure cooker.
Right. Submarine, that's a whole different...
You probably had to pass a psychological test to even get on it.
That's a whole different ball game.
Wow.
Okay, let's
cool.
go aft, or forward actually, so we're going to go that way. I'll show you the ammo. So this is a 40 millimeter clip.
Wow.
You can feel how heavy that is.
Ooh.
And they're empty.
20 pounds maybe?
So that just drops to the top of the gun.
The big ones in the front.
No, that's the big one in the front. That's 350.
Imagine this.
This is the Bofors.
And this is the...
that's the time shell. So it has this.
Okay.
You see 2 little notches on here. So it has the machine next to the gun.
Yeah.
You put the nose in, and that calibrated the elevation and everything, and how many seconds, and that would set the timer.
And this is a typical 50 cal.
50, and that's the 20 millimeter down here.
This is a Clint Eastwood
45 was the service revolver, or the service.
Really? That's a pretty big caliber.
Yeah, and also the submachine guns were 45. So you could use the same ammo in the sidearm and the submachine guns. And then they also had carbines, so 30 caliber carbines around.
Well,
they all carried small arms.
And this is another...
that's just...
Another regular bell. Well, I'll let you go ahead of me.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
First room to the right there, that's radio and
navigation. I gotta show my dad this, because he still has ham radio.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. Is this just what it would sound like back in the day?
Yeah, they would have that Morse code. So we had that gentleman came on board about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And him in the picture of the guy above, that's the same guy.
Oh, wow.
He was a radioman on the number 44.
I'm going to grab my bag.
Organized.
So this is the communication.
Yeah. There's our radio room. Those would be period. These, I believe, are from the 60s maybe, but these actually work. And there's a frequency that has all the Navy historical ships. So that might be the Hornet.
Oh, those are Collins. I used to work at Collins Radio.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Those are great radios, by the way.
They lasted this long.
They last.
Yeah, I think they're from the. These are from the 60s.
Is that the
Story
signal?
about Arthur Collins that started Collins Radio. His friend was Admiral Byrd, and when Byrd went on one of those polar expeditions, he took one of his radios, the Collins radios, with him. And when they got up there, it was so cold, the other radios failed, and he's the only one that worked.
Ah.
And when he got back, he had a contract.
Yeah. He proved himself.
Yeah.
He was showing me this picture, Dad. This is younger and
Same guy.
some guy.
Yeah.
So he was the radioman on the
At least he's still alive.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's still alive now. That was about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, I've got a meter like this.
Yeah.
Simpson T7.
Gordon has a ton of meters.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wants to rip all those out and put in these nice fixtures and rewire. Just put a job.
I bet. And these are original.
These would be
These are-
period.
Tubes in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Those all tube.
Even these.
I believe so.
Yeah. These have tubes in them.
Yeah. I also have a thing called mechanical filters, which was patented by Arthur Collins. And they were the sharpest and cleanest filters for
No flushy, no toilety.
No, it's constant flushing salt water.
running through it.
Yeah. So it's close to radio navigation, so if they get lost, they can run follow the trail. down.
Oh,
The poop, huh?
I like that. Wow.
It's amazing.
This is the officer's head?
Yeah, that's officer's
Okay.
head. Officers don't go potty where the enlisted men go.
No. I noticed that enlisted men, the privacy doesn't exist.
No, you just learn to look forward
Yep.
at all times.
That's part of the feeling like one unit too, right? No.
We don't judge.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Petty officers' quarters. So petty officers are non-commissioned officers. In the Army, you have sergeants and corporals. In the Navy, you have petty officers.
What do you mean by non-commissioned?
Petty officers are non-commissioned officers, so that means they're enlisted officers.
They volunteered to be there? Is that
No,
what
you
know?
go up through. So the Navy has 9 pay grades.
Okay.
So when you're in boot camp, you're E1, which is enlisted 1,
Okay.
and then E2, E3. So those E1 through E3 are non-rated. So you don't have a specialty.
Got
You
it.
can be assigned to deck. You can do whatever they tell you to. And then E4 is when you pick, or you get picked
A specialty,
as a specialty.
right?
And
then
like
you-
I was an Indian.
You get a pay bump?
Yeah, each pay grade. Yeah, they're pay grades. And so E4, you become a 3rd class petty officer. E5 is 2nd class petty officer. E6 is 1st class petty officer. And then
Okay.
you become E7 to E9 as chief petty officers.
So these were petty officers
petty
within
officers to
different
be here.
levels.
The non-rated or non-petty officers, there's 28 bunks on the other side of that bulkhead, and they would sleep there. And then there's
Okay.
32 bunks in another compartment.
Interesting. These are actual dog tags or
Yeah,
some of them? You do?
yeah, it's on my key thing.
That's awesome. From the Vietnam era or?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It has my name, rank, and it doesn't have my rank. It has a serial number and blood type.
Did you
and
watch that Netflix show about World War One that came out a few weeks
No.
ago?
Huh.
Pretty good, but
Yeah.
it's pretty bloody.
Did you see?
Talk about the trenches and everything.
Oh yeah, trench warfare. I've taught World
Well,
War One in school.
Oh,
I
well, one
teach-
of the guys, like, literally, like, he had to cut dog tags off all the dead
yeah,
people.
yeah. Well, a lot of them, especially in the wintertime, they were frozen.
Yeah,
And,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
It really opened my eyes to how bloody that war was.
See, there's a movie out called Flyboys.
Flyboys. Okay.
Really, it's about the American flyers that volunteered before we entered World War I.
Oh, okay.
They flew for the French, and they had their own squadron. And it's a true story. And there's 6 or 7 that volunteered, and it gives you the time that they spent over there, and then what happened to them. I think 3 or 4 survived to the end of World War I.
We're gonna go see that movie Devotion this weekend. The new one.
Yeah, that's supposed to be good.
Yeah. So this is the higher
officers.
Junior officers, okay.
And then this would be the captains in XO. Now, a larger ship, captain's going to have his own stateroom. So that would be the captain's bunk. He has the phone.
I see.
Speaking tube that goes up to the bridge. And then we have...
And I learned about the safe on
the Hornet?
Yeah, that they actually got paid.
Every 2 weeks in cash. Yeah, I know, I did.
Because that was a morale thing too, right?
Yeah.
You had to see some justification for your
Yeah, a lot of them, sent the money home.
Right, I was going to...
But, you got paid every I remember we go up to the mess deck, and they'd have the dispersing officer, and, everybody had a 45, and, the one guy would count out your money, another guy would recount it, and you had to sign for it, and you counted it, and you got paid every 2 weeks in cash.
When there was a problem on a boat like this, like, was there a punishment area, or no?
Not on a ship like this, they wouldn't have a brig.
It's too small, right?
Like the Hornet has a brig. The first ship I was on was the USS Hector, which was a World War II era ship, and they had a brig.
And these are the guys that were on this ship, you think?
Yes.
Must be.
Yeah, that was Christmas 1945.
Really?
That one.
Wow.
And then this is the wardroom. This is where the officers ate and had their meetings.
Fancy, fancy.
That's Lieutenant Jones. He was the original commanding officer on this. So a lot of junior officers volunteered for duty on these because it gave them a chance at command.
Commander Jones?
Lieutenant Jones.
Lieutenant Jones.
So if you're a lieutenant on an aircraft carrier, you might be one of 150. On this, you might be the captain.
Oh, okay.
Some of them even had ensigns, which is the lowest.
And this is the Thai guy that was running
He
it?
was the original Thai commander when it first went to Thailand. And that's him. He stayed in and became admiral of the Thai Navy. So that's him.
Decorate
admiral.
their uniforms.
Yeah, I know. Looks pretty fan. I don't know how big the Thai Navy is.
Yeah.
But they really deck them out, don't they?
Yeah.
During Thailand, it was called the Naka, which means sea serpent in Thai.
What are these pictures?
These are pictures. So our skipper was on the 86 during this. That's the USS Porter. Mm-hmm. And the Porter got hit by Kamikaze, and it was sinking. Mm-hmm. And 3 of these got around it, and they were able to get everybody off before it sank. So it was the only combat ship to sink during World War II without any loss of life.
That's awesome.
And you can see it.
And someone's getting the Purple Heart here.
No, Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor.
Lieutenant Cool.
For being part of this situation?
He was on the 122, I think it was. And his ship got hit by Kamikaze, and he saved his ship. And he got the Medal of Honor from Truman. So you can see the Porter's going down here. That's the bow.
Oh, wow.
And here it capsizes. So this is this, and then it capsized finally, and then it goes down.
Now, this is right after, so they were still under attack, right?
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, the Kamikazes generally were kind of same. You wouldn't have like 50 Kamikazes all in one group.
I see.
You'd have, they were generally single.
Pretty cool. And this is just a decoration or something?
It's to ward off evil spirits, the Thais. Yeah, they have them on all their ships. It's usually right in the front. Reunions that they had, that's back in 1987.
Oh, yeah, August 13th.
Yeah, I think there's only maybe a handful of veterans still left that served on these.
Well,
yeah, 3 showed up as a reunion.
This year.
Yeah, and some couldn't make it.
Aha.
So, 32 bunks down here.
Wow.
So everybody had their own bunk. The submarines, they hot bunked, where they had enough bunks for half the crew. So
half would be working, and
right,
they'd do shifts.
Right.
Wow. God, when you mentioned claustrophobia, I was like, whoa, this is definitely claustrophobic.
The Hector was like this. The second ship I was on commission, it was brand new, and the living quarters were a lot more doable. They were only 3 high.
But you think of how exhausted they would be. They'd probably just knock right out.
Yeah, they're 18, 19 years old.
Right.
Yeah, at that age. I enlisted when I was 17.
Oh.
And, after a day, I could go to sleep anywhere, which I often did.
And this is a typical uniform?
Yeah, this would be a third-class petty officer. And I think he's a aircraft mechanic.
I see.
So that tells you your rate.
Huh.
So if you look that up,
it's made out of wool. You can feel the itchy wool.
Well, it's better than the whites. I hated wearing dress whites because they got dirty so damn.
Oh yeah, you touch one thing, right? You go like this. You're like, ah.
Yeah. So
and then the officers would yell at you about that, right?
Yeah. Uniform's dirty. Go change.
Wow. And the lockers are for personal items, or?
Correct. In their uniforms.
Okay.
And this is the mess deck. This is where they ate and had their meals. And
how many people in here at a time?
Well, they ate in shifts, so there'd probably be maybe 20 down here eating. In the South Pacific probably ate mostly up on deck, I would think.
Yeah, sick bay, huh?
Ship, a sick bay is going to be separate.
I just had a thought of how hot it might be down there. Got pretty hot.
Yeah, they didn't have air conditioning.
Right, just fans. I'm seeing all these fans. Oh, great.
We got 2 of those. We had to refurbish them.
These are actual radios, huh?
They're receivers.
Hmm.
Tube receivers. You had to change all the tubes and do a little rewiring.
So this was to keep, while you're eating, you could have a little pleasure.
Well, this one, they had a record player up in the radio room.
Yeah.
And they could also bring in like Tokyo Rose.
What is that?
You never heard of Tokyo Rose?
No.
She was a Japanese propagandist. So she had, the Japanese would broadcast her radio shows.
Okay.
And it was intended to make everybody homesick and give up, and but it turned out to be more of a morale booster than
for here that like the enemy would.
The enemy would broadcast.
Oh, I see.
And they'd play music, like American music, and then she would get on. Tokyo Rose would get on, and she would talk about that the Americans don't have a chance to.
And she was Japanese.
She was Japanese,
and they would send it out so these ships could get the signal.
Right, you could get that signal.
Oh wow! And that is definitely propaganda.
Yeah,
then, huh?
And her name was Tokyo Rose.
Huh?
She was tried after the war.
Really?
Yeah. And I think the Germans had a counterpart one also.
Did it affect morale? Did it ever? You said it had opposite effect.
It would affect people that might be affected anyway.
Right.
There's always going to be.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're losing the war. You're always going to have a minority. But for the most part, the guys kind of, because they played American music, and so it was the only form of entertainment you had from the outside world.
That's funny.
Yeah. We didn't even have radio when we came back. We didn't get commercial radio until like a day and a half from getting back to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so I remember we had a radio receiver in our living quarters, and we they had like 3 or 4 channels, and we flipped the channels like every hour to see if we got reception, because once we got reception, we knew we would be home in a day and a half.
Oh, I see.
So
that was a way of telling where you were.
Yeah, and so once you heard that radio, because we were gone for 8 months. Once you heard that radio signal, they had a radio show called California Girls.
Okay.
Back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And I think it was part of KGO. And so it was like a call-in talk show. Girls would call in, talk about their boyfriends.
Just hearing a woman's voice is nice, right?
I know. It was, but you heard that, and you knew you were almost home. It was
that's cool.
Nice feeling.
Wow. Are these pictures behind? Those are more of the ones you talked about before.
These are what the
right?
ships look like in World War II. This is the number 12. So you can see it doesn't have the roof and the windows up on top.
Yeah.
And if it showed,
You're
like this one
about-
shows the guns. So the 40 millimeters are open. They don't have the armor around
that's
them.
right. You were mentioning
And you
that.
can see the rocket launchers here. See that rack?
Yeah.
And it's just a real simple, it's just gravity fed. And the bottom rockets fire, and then the next ones drop down and they fire, and then the next one's fired 120 that guy. That's
And
the
this is,
Lieutenant McCool. He got the
Getting that
Medal of
Medal
Honor.
of Honor again.
Yeah, there's this little
This
story
is some
there.
damage.
Yeah.
This
These are,
looks like part of the landing gear of the Kamikaze.
yeah, probably is.
Wow.
These are the rockets. This is a. So they took, when they first were developing these ships, they took the LCIs, the landing craft infantry, and they turned them into rocket ships. And they didn't carry infantry anymore, but they loaded them up with these racks, and it was a very effective tool, weapon. So that's when they decided to put them on these.
Wow.
So you can kind of see.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
racks.
the
So those would be full.
Where is it? Where is it?
So they definitely made some changes.
Yeah. Well, the nose of that one's not round either. It's flat,
No.
right?
Hmm.
Wow. Very cool.
Any questions?
No, you covered a lot. Very impressive. As far as maintaining this,
It's all volunteers and donations. We've got, well, counting the kids, we've probably got maybe 15.
where are the kids from? Naval Academy or
No,
Travis,
a dad and a son came on board one day about, I don't know, it was before COVID. Jake, his dad, and they got interested, and
Okay.
so they started volunteering.
Cool.
And his dad had he was a medic in the Navy.
Yeah.
And and Jake's kind of he likes reenactment, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So he starts coming, and he lives about maybe half a mile from where I live.
Oh,
so
nice.
like this morning I dropped over and picked him up, and
Nice.
I'll drop him off at home.
It's nice.
So and then he has reenactment friends also, and so they all started coming, but they're all like high school kids.
They
so
don't
trying
do that.
to keep them in line and keep them.
Yeah, I have a 19-year-old, so I know.
Yeah, it's funny because I teach high school. And,
Oh, do you?
Yeah, and some days when they're all here, it's like being in class.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to.
Keep them on track.
Yeah. What is that thing?
Which one?
That gray.
Oh, that's the.
Looks like you're working on it, huh?
No, that's actually the. That goes on top of the 20 millimeters, and that compensates for the shooting at airplanes. You got to shoot in front of them.
Okay.
So that the bullet and the plane meet.
Right.
So that automatically compensates.
Oh,
for
that
it.
you were talking about
Yeah.
that. Okay.
So that's what one of them looks like. It's actually a gyro
Got it.
inside there. I'm not quite sure how they actually
I
work.
wonder how the accuracy. Probably not that great.
Actually, they were pretty accurate.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Surprisingly, the Japanese didn't like them, and part of it was probably because we had them.
Yeah, that's a goal. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was a great tour. Well, what did you think of that? Got a lot of stories out of Tony about the history of this LCS 102. So thanks for coming along on the journey today. If you guys like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to comment on the video, please do. All right, we'll see you on my next video.